Yes, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for confirmation. So as we can see that the PowerPoint presentation itself says effective communication skills. So when we talk about effective communication skills, this is not a very critical process, but we need to understand each and every point related to effective communication skills. Not only this, but also we need to understand how effective communication can be done. And this is only possible when we have a proper training session. And this is the reason we are conducting this particular training session regarding effective communication skills. Now I will move to second slide. And here I need your active participation and opinion. So I hope all of you can see this particular slide. I need confirmation from your side.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So here in this slide, this is a presentation which tells about a tree swing story. So I will explain exactly what it is trying to say. So this is a photograph of a swing, as you can say, and a tree. The first, where my pointer is, it says how the customer explained it. So it is telling us what could be the effect of improper communication between the two persons and how the story ends up. So this is the first portion, how the customer explained it to the carpenter or the mechanic to make a swing. This is what he wanted. How the project leader, the person who was taking care of the project, so first he could not himself understand it properly, and then the way he understood it was improper. Next, he told it to the analyst. The analyst misunderstood it again. Then the programmer misunderstood it. Then, at each successive stage, every person who was related to making this swing was miscommunicated, or we can say that he was not able to understand the idea which was communicated from the customer side. And finally, if you will look at the last slide, you can see that there is a tire hanging from the branch of the tree. So exactly the concept in this tree swing story is that if the communication is not proper, if it is not delivered properly, and if the purpose of communication is not solved, then it will end up giving an entirely different picture, truly different picture. And let us suppose that if we wanted to get something made up by a carpenter, we will end up getting something else. We tried for a chair with a handrest, and we will be finally getting a chair without a handrest. So this is what the entire truth, the tree swing story tells us, that we have to be very effective in our communication, and the story should be relayed exactly in the same fashion, or the same message should be communicated from point A to point Z. This is what the second slide says. So the communication should be proper and clear. Now, let us understand what is communication. Communication is nothing else, but it is a transmission or transfer of an idea or feeling so that sender and receiver share the same understanding. We saw in the second slide that the idea was shared, but both the communicator who was sending the idea, the sender, and the receiver of the idea were not on the same page, and somehow the receiver misunderstood the idea, and finally they got up ending an abstract idea, and the entire picture of the story was different. So if the idea is communicated, if the feeling is communicated, the way it is sent from the sender in the same fashion or in the same way, it must be understood by the receiver, then this proper communication would be fulfilled. संप्रेषण हिंदी में इसको कहते हैं हम लोग, तो हमारे विचारों का जो समुचित आदान प्रदान है, जिस तरह से भेजा गया उसी तरह से समझा गया और उस पर काम किया गया, तभी ये संप्रेषण या कम्युनिकेशन जो है वो प्रॉपर कही जाएगी, उसका आइडिया फुलफिल हो सकता है। कम्युनिकेशन इज नॉट अ मिस्टीरियस प्रोसेस। ये बहुत ज्यादा इसमें कोई रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है, बहुत कुछ रहस्यमय नहीं है, इसमें बहुत एक सिंपल प्रोसेस है। It takes place when the idea from your mind or anybody's mind is transferred to another's and arrived intactly with complete and coherent. सो ये जो आइडिया हम कम्युनिकेट कर रहे हैं ये एग्जैक्टली वैसे ही पास होना चाहिए एक व्यक्ति से दूसरे व्यक्ति तक, हाउ द पर्पस शुड बी सॉल्व। तो अगर हमें चेयर चाहिए तो चेयर मिले, उसकी जगह स्टूल ना मिले। और इसके लिए अगर कम्युनिकेशन प्रॉपर हमें करनी है, if we need to have a proper communication, a successful communication, then we need to take care of various points which I am going to show in the next few slides. What is process of communication? How it is done? Communication is the process of sending and receiving information among people. We send information, we receive the information, but between sending and receiving the information, prior to that and post to that, there are different processes which are involved. Feedback receiver, sender, medium, encode, decode, sender, receiver. This is the workflow of the communication. So let us suppose a sender sends a message which is encoded, which is not clear. It can be sent through different channels. It can be sent through WhatsApp. It can be sent over the phone. It can be sent over the different channels of communication like Facebook. Then it is decoded and recipient understands it. So communication is encoded, then it passes through the channel, then it's decoded. Recipient receives the idea, it gives again the feedback, it is encoded, then it is received by the sender himself. तो जो आइडिया भेजा गया डिफरेंट मीडियम से वो रिसीव किया रिसीवर ने, उसको समझा, उस पर फीडबैक दिया और उस आइडिया का जो फीडबैक है वो रीकम्युनिकेट हुआ कहाँ, सेंडर को. So there is no rocket science into it. This is not a very mysterious process. The only thing which we need to be very careful about it, that the idea which needs to be propagated from one point to another point, it should be intact and it should not be changed during the course of communication. So we have different type of communication. When we go ahead and communicate with people, we have different processes, we have different types, like verbal communication. When we speak something over the phone, or if somebody is hearing us in the audience, that is a verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is done through our gestures, the hand movement, the eye movements, the facial expression. Written communication, we send WhatsApp messages, letters, different kind of written piece of communication is sent. Then we have visual communication. What is visual communication? We see a video, we see a documentary, we see different things from where the message is communicated from one point to another point, or we can say from sender to the receiver. So these are various types of communications which we will be discussing in the next few slides. Now, let us see what are types of non-verbal communication. So verbal communication, we understand that we go ahead and we deliver the idea by speaking the idea. In non-verbal communication, there are various aspects and how it is shown. So non-verbal communication is exactly the basic thing is the body language. It is shown by facial expression. If we are angry, the facial expression is there. If we are happy, the facial expression is there. Then we have postures, how we are sitting. So if the communication is proper, if the person is interested, they will sit straight in a firm way and they will try to receive the idea. But if the person is not interested, he is not understanding the idea, the person will slouch in the chair or in the sofa and they look less interested into the ideas. Body contact. We greet people, we shake hands, we pat the back of somebody if we appreciate the person. So idea of appreciating a person or greeting a person, that is a non-verbal communication which is shown by body contact. Ways of talking, that is also non-verbal communication. Although we are talking, but the way we go ahead and stress on different words, like you need to do it. So when we see we need to do it, then we are emphasizing on the word doing. So it must be done. That is the idea which is given. Pauses, proper pauses should be given when we are saying something so that the person or the receiver should understand the exact idea. Hand movements, as I'm doing right now. Sounds like laughing, crying. So these also go ahead and communicate the idea. These also tell that whether the person is happy or sad or angry. Then we have eye movements. Sometimes rather than saying yes or no, we go ahead and move our eyelids and give our confirmation regarding something. or we nod our head like this or like this, and we communicate the idea of yes or no. So here also the person can go ahead and understand whether the communication has been passed from receiver to the sender, and vice versa, sender to the receiver and receiver to the sender, and vice versa. Closeness, coming too close to someone, so we need to maintain. See, it's very simple. When we ask the students to go ahead and read something, there should be a proper gap between the eyes and the book itself. Because if the book is too close or if the book is too far, the person is not able to understand the idea which is communicated. And then comes, so whenever a communication is done, there should be a proper distance between the person, the sender and the receiver. Then we have the appearance in place. Appearance exactly means that when you are appearing in front of a person, the clothes should be neat and clean. Because see, it is what does verbal or non-verbal communication does? It gives not only the idea, but it also goes ahead and gives the impression of the person. So the entire idea of communication is making a correct impression on the receiver itself. So if we have a better appearance, if there is a tidiness in our appearance, the impact is more powerful rather than when we are untidy or we are not properly or formally dressed. Now, techniques of active listening. So when we are receiving an idea through listening, what is the technique of active listening? So whenever we are receiving an idea properly, we can go ahead and paraphrase the things. See, we cannot go ahead and ask a person, did you say this? Did you see this? Did you say that? So that sounds very rude. Rather than saying this, what we can say that, sir, by saying this, you meant to say this. The line that you have used, sir, this is what you meant to communicate. So this is the proper way to go ahead and reconfirm. By paraphrasing, it not only shows your active listening skills, but if you want to go ahead and confirm a point, you can paraphrase and confirm it in the most polite manner. Then comes the summary. So if you can go ahead and summarize the given points, then also the person in front of us can go ahead and understand that we are receiving the idea. So let us suppose that if we are into this particular session, and at the end of the session, if I ask one of the members to go ahead and summarize the main points of this particular conversation or event, so summary itself tells us that whatever I said, the person is able to understand, and this means that the proper communication was done. Then the question, challenge speaker to think further. In some sessions, we can go ahead and ask a few questions in a very polite manner to the speaker itself. This not only shows that we are actively listening, but this also tells the speaker that we are receiving the idea properly. This is the same thing which what we do in the class, right? We go ahead and ask a few questions to the students, and if they respond, we can go ahead and understand that our communication has been properly passed to the students, because they go ahead and tend to give the ideas, they go ahead and tend to give the answers of those questions. So active listening skills can be checked, paraphrased, and summarized in this particular fashion, in this particular manner. Now, how can we become good listener? See, if we talk about listening, speaking is not that much difficult. Uh, Writing an idea is not that much difficult, because listening is very, very difficult. Why listening is very difficult? The first problem with listening is that we have to be very, very patient to listen to the ideas of a person, because it tends to take time. Second thing, when we arrive in a meeting or when we go somewhere, we already have a particular bent of mind, or we are preoccupied with some notions. So to shed those notions and understand the given particular point, it takes a lot of effort to take out those preoccupied notions and keep it aside and actively receive the idea or the communication which is imparted by the speaker. So whenever we tend to become a good listener, we have to keep the preoccupied notions away and try to listen to the speaker. So what are those points on which I'm going to lay stress on? Number one, actively listening and be empathetic to others' views and concerns. So whenever we are into a training session or into an event, we need to listen actively what the person is trying to say. And we try to put it ourselves in the shoes of the speaker, and then only we can better understand the idea. Next, welcome the opportunity to hear competing points of view. So it's not about the people who are participating or listening to an event or listening to a training session, but it also implies on the speaker himself. Because whenever somebody is speaking or asking a cross question or questioning the given things, he or she needs to be ready to communicate further with the listener who is actively listening to the speaker. Apart from that, don't take criticism personally and practice what you preach. Solicit feedback from others to help you improve. So, to be a good listener, we need to take the criticism or feedback positively, and we must work on that particular feedback positively so that in the coming days, that particular area will be improved in the given course of time. Seek further information to clarify ambiguity. Let us suppose that I am taking the training session and some of the points are not clear to you. So you can go ahead and ask closed open-ended questions to me so that I can further provide information regarding the same. Take time to interpret and understand the context of motives for and reasoning in received communication. So we should not move in haste that whatever we listened it fine. We should take our proper time to properly understand the idea and work on it. Why I am saying this? Because even if the communication is done and we did not give a thought on the communication, the idea which needs to be communicated will be entirely different, as we saw in the swing story, the tree swing story. Remember to pause and let others finish what they have to say before you respond. So here, this is a very, very important quality of an active listener, that the listener have to be very, very patient. He need to wait for his own timings. Whenever the time is appropriate, whenever you have an exact opportunity to speak, wait for the others to respond, put forth their point of view, then only clarify the ambiguities in the session, or then only go ahead and clarify the points. Like, let the child speak in the class, whatever he wants to speak. Once he is finished, then only you need to go ahead and respond. Because if we will start speaking in the midway, the idea which the child wants to communicate to us, that would be abstracted. So we need to be very patient, listen very carefully, not only to the speaker, but also the children of the class needs to be listened properly, and we need to give a little bit of time, understand what he wants to ask. So answering question is not important, but understanding the question properly and answering in a proper way is much and more important thing. Then last but not the least, respond promptly and coherently. Whatever you are responding, whatever answer you are going to the question, it should be prompt. It should not be very much delayed, right? So it should be very prompt and it should be coherent. It should not be ambiguous. ऐसा नहीं कि हम उसको फिर से वो क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा और हमने फिर उसको ले जाके एक शंका वाले वातावरण में खड़ा कर दिया, उसकी चीजें क्लियर नहीं हो पा रही. So even if you are not, if you don't know the answer, wait for some time and then give the answer. Okay, so do not give incorrect answer. Give coherent answer which is relevant and take some time to give the answer. Then only the effective communication will be done. Now, 5 ways to be an active and effective listener. So here the ways we discuss to be how we can be good listener. And here we are going to discuss that what is the effective way to listen if we are sitting somewhere in a meeting or in an audience or in an event, how it proves to be a good listener and as well as active listening. Face the speaker, show your attentiveness through body language. So whenever we are sitting in a session, we have to I mean, tend to show our attentiveness. It could be shown by the body language. ऐसा नहीं कि बिल्कुल हम चेयर पे बैठे हैं लेट ही गए हैं वहाँ पे. We have to be attentive and look into the eyes of the speaker and try to get the vibes, the ideas which the speaker is trying to communicate. Maintain eye contact. So the same thing, we need to maintain the eye contact so that both the speaker and the listener must feel comfortable. Keep an open mind. It means that wait until the other person finishes a thought before deciding you agree or disagree. We need to completely receive the idea before we can go ahead and do what? We respond. Effectively receive the entire idea given by the speaker, and then only we must decide whether we agree to idea or we disagree with the idea. Disagree to the idea. Minimize external distractions. Whenever we are in a proper meeting, if we want to be a good listener, we need to put our phone in aeroplane mode, or if it is very urgent, we can put our phone in do not disturb mode, or we can put our phone in silent or vibration mode. We need to, if the person is sitting in front of you, we have the laptop or the phone, it should be in the pocket, or laptop should be moved aside, and focus on the entire conversation which is happening. So we should be very active during the conversation. Engage. What speaker needs to do? Ask questions, paraphrase the points the other person has made. So whenever we are acting as a speaker, we need to paraphrase. If somebody is not understanding what is the exact communication he wants to deliver, so you can tell the same thing in a different fashion, in a different mode of conduct. Also, we can go ahead and paraphrase whatever the other person has said or summarize. So this is a very important point when we are working as a speaker. We listen to the people at a rate of 125 to 250 words per minute, but think at 1000 to 3000 words per minute. What does it say? It says that we listen slowly, but we are very much ready to speak up because our inflow is slow and outflows is fast. So to be a good listener, we need to be very, very patient. Okay, so listen properly the idea, wait for it, let the idea finish, and then re-communicate. Communication skills are number one quality employers want. So see, this is what we have been focusing. We want all our teachers to be vocal. We want all our teachers to communicate their ideas. And this is what this point says, that communication skill is so important that it is wanted. The effective communication is wanted in each and every sector, whether it's education sector, whether it's the corporate sector, any sector. So effective communication becomes very, very important in each and every sector. And this is why this session is happening, so that we can improve our communication. 85% of the individuals rate themselves as an average or worse listener. So the people can speak well, but they do not have the patience to listen to the thoughts of the other person, because we always have a point to prove. So we tend to, or what we must be a good listener, and we should wait for the exact time for us to communicate the idea. What is importance of effective communication? If we are doing the communication properly, what would be the benefit out of it, or why is it important? Effective communication helps to understand a person or a situation in a better way. If communication is proper, if it is effective, we will empathize with the speaker and we will be able to understand the exact situation the person is facing. It enables us to solve the differences, build trust and respect in the organization. A very good point. We should not be listening to the third person, but we should go ahead and talk to the person, communicate. This is why a lot of meeting happens in our organization, so that the idea is well propagated. The people are clearly able to understand the idea. It also helps in building the trust between the two individuals and respect within the organization itself. Sometimes our message is misunderstood or we misunderstand the received message. Effective communication helps us to resolve problems from both point of view. So if a message is communicated in a correct fashion but misunderstood, then what can happen? Blunder can happen. The relations can go sour. So if we communicate properly, if the message is sent properly, received properly, proper communication is done, then there would be no confusion and there will be no problem between the two individuals or between the two people. Effective communication helps us to connect well with colleagues, teachers, and parents. Very true. So, not only in the office, but at home also, we can go ahead and connect with our children, with our parents, with the teachers also, we can communicate, our colleagues communicate well, parents communicate well. So, this, and why this is important? Because this is also important during the parents teachers meet. The idea which we want to communicate to the parents should be loud and clear, and it should be properly propagated. It helps us in decision making. It also helps in go ahead and make a proper decision. So please allow me a moment. I'll get back to you. I'm here. There is some technical error which is coming up. Please bear with me. All right. So there was a power power was unplugged. Okay. So this is how and what is the importance of effective communication. Now, what are the barriers? If we can understand don'ts of a conversation, if we can understand that what we should not do, we can very well understand that what we should do. So when we are making an effective communication, trying to make an effective communication, what are the barriers? What are the hurdles? What are the things which are stopping, which tend to stop an effective communication? Emotional barriers and taboos. What does exactly mean? What does this exactly mean? This means that let us suppose that we still have a taboo that males do not go ahead and talk to the females, females don't go ahead and talk to the males regarding any particular issue. Or in the family also we can see that the if the people still have the culture follows the child does not go ahead and talk too much to the father itself. A male child is very attached to the mother, a female child is very much attached to the father. This is what the scenario is. So that emotional barrier needs to be broken. That taboo barrier needs to be broken to have an effective communication. Lack of attention, interest, distraction, or irrelevance to the receiver. If receiver is not paying attention, if he is not interested in the topic, if he is distracted, the phone is coming again and again, there is some other work, he needs to go somewhere else. Or if the topic is irrelevant to the receiver, if the listener is not interested in the given topic, then we also see that there is a barrier to the communication. He or she does not receive the communication in a well designated manner. Physical disabilities such as hearing problems or speech difficulties. So very valid point. If a person could not listen properly, or if the speaker could not speak properly, then also there is a barrier of communication. Physical barrier to non-verbal communication. What is this? If there is no proper eye movement, no hand movement, uh, disinterest is coming on the face, the facial expression is not proper, so that is also a barrier to the communication. Language differences and the difficulty in understanding unfamiliar accent, use of jargons. What are jargons? Any idea? Anyone? What do we understand by jargons? Okay, I'll explain. So, let us suppose that we are attending a training session in Bengali. Will we be able to understand? I don't think so, because we are not capable to write and read Bengali, right? Apart from that, let us suppose that a person from United States, or let us suppose a person from Hawaii speaks in English. Will we be easily unable to understand what the person is speaking? No, because the accent of the person is completely different. They have a different accent, and sometimes it becomes difficult to understand a foreign accent which we are not comfortable with. And word jargon itself means that the technical words which are used in any field of work. Like, let us suppose that if I say um, syntax in English, so if I'm giving a training in syntax, so most of the people are aware of syntax, but if we talk about it, this is a technically related to the language word, so it can be called as a jargon. So the words which are used specifically in a particular field of work is called as jargon. Expectations and prejudices which may lead to false assumption or stereotyping. So this is what we discussed initially, that when we are going to receive an idea, our mind should be empty. We should not have a preconceived notion. We should not be preoccupied. We should not have prejudices. पहले से ही किसी के बारे में, किसी कम्युनिकेशन के बारे में, किसी टॉपिक के बारे में सोच के नहीं बैठना, क्योंकि क्या होगा, फिर हमारा माइंड खाली नहीं है. वी आर आवर माइंड इज नॉट फ्रेश टू रिसीव द आइडियाज. Differences in perception and viewpoints. The viewpoint of a speaker might be different, the viewpoint of receiver might be different, or listener might be different, but meeting happens just because the viewpoint is different, to arrive to a common viewpoint for which the meeting is done. What is common viewpoint? The idea of the speaker is as same as the idea of the receiver. That is the common viewpoint, right? So if there is a difference in perception, different in the viewpoint, what we do is that we go ahead and reach to a common viewpoint, and our effective communication is done. Now, this is very important. If we want to be an effective speaker, if we want to communicate properly, if there is a need of effective communication, what are the things which needed to be taken care of? And these are the 7 C's of communication: completeness, concreteness, courtesy, correctness, clarity, consideration, and conciseness. So if we will focus on these 7 C's of communication, we will be very easily to communicate in an effective manner. What is it? Completeness. The sender must take into consideration the receiver's mindset and convey the message accordingly. So if we are conducting a meeting for class 10 student, class 8 student should not be the part of that particular meeting, because the mindset of class 10 student is developed and they can understand the idea that you want to communicate. So before communicating an idea, we should completely understand the receiver's mindset, whether they are receptive or not. It gives additional information, leaves no question in mind of the receiver. So completeness itself means that when the person leaves the session, he should have each and every aspect of the idea imparted by you or me should be clear in his mind, that what is the information which has been communicated, what is the effectiveness of that communication. It helps in better decision making, desired and crucial information. So if we are telling the exact information, the correct information, it also helps in decision making about anything. Let us suppose that a guardian comes in, he tells us about his child in a very proper fashion. If we completely understand the idea or the communication which was imparted by the parent, we would be able to focus more prominently on the child's behavior. We can go ahead and think about it. We can go ahead and reason about it. Concreteness, it means being particular and clear. Let us not beat around the bush. The idea should be clear, very in one line. It exhibits good level of confidence. If we are very concrete about the idea, it also shows the confidence in the speaker regarding that idea. Strengthens the reputation of the organization. So if the idea is delivered with a concreteness, like the sir says that you, every teacher is of our school is the principal of our school. So if you say something, it should be well thought and it should have a firmness that we are not going to change this particular thing. And this in itself goes ahead and strengthens the reputation of the organization. It cannot be misinterpreted. So if the idea is concrete, it's clear on the wall, if the writing is clear on the wall, it will not be miscommunicated, misinterpreted by the people who are reading the idea on the wall itself. Courtesy. So whenever we are in a meeting, we should use the words. I will go ahead and tell. Courtesy doesn't only mean saying please and thank you. Courtesy means being polite, kind, judicious, enthusiastic, and convincing. So whenever we go in a meeting, we tend to be very, very polite, receive the idea, judicious, think about the idea, think logically about the idea, enthusiastic in communicating our idea, receiving also and while delivering also, and convincing. The idea should have a logical points that if this is the idea, these are the reasons behind this idea. It reflects the nature and character of the sender. So if there is a courtesy, there is a politeness. Let us suppose that we are taking a session in which we are using the words full of anger. So will the listener receive our idea? Absolutely not. Because we are only made to understand the idea or any communication is a very polite form. मुझे ही अगर कोई डांट के कुछ समझाएगा या हम ही बच्चे को डांट के कुछ समझाएंगे वो उस समय समझेगा नहीं, बिकॉज देयर इज एन एंगर विद इन हिमसेल्फ. But after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if we call the student to our desk and tell the student that why we are doing this, what is the purpose behind this, the student can go ahead and very well understand the idea, the communication which we want to do. If it works under the rule, give and take. So courtesy, आप किसी को थैंक यू बोलेंगे, बदले में वो आपको भी वेलकम बोलेगा. दिस इज द courtesy. अगर आप किसी को गुड डे बोलेंगे तो बदले में वो भी आपको हैव अ नाइस डे बोलेगा. So whenever there is a communication, the courtesy should be maintained. Thank you, please, sorry. These words should be used. Correctness, the data, the information which we are providing, it should not be ambiguous. It should not be incorrect at all. If it is incorrect, it will decrease the confidence level of the sender or the communicator. Not only because the person can turn up and always says that the data which you provided to us was completely false, and it questions the integrity of the person as well. So whatever data we are sharing, it should be correct, it should be well checked. If the data is correct or if the communication is correct, it has a better impact on audience. Audience can go ahead and verify it and say that yes, person was saying correctly. So multilingualism is very, very important for what? For to have a better communication with the students. That is the reason it has been written in the NEP 2020. So the person starts believing in you. It should be free from grammatical errors, grammatical mistakes. So whenever we communicate an idea, we must try to make it free from grammatical errors, grammatical mistakes. It includes the precision, accurateness of the facts and figures. So precision, in short, we need to give the information in short, but on the same time, it should be perfectly correct, perfectly fine. Now, let us see this why it is saying that the idea it should be free, or the communication should be free from grammatical error. I have given an idea downwards. It says, let's eat dad. Let's eat, comma, dad. Both sentences are same, but there is a difference of punctuation mark in it. So first sentence means let's eat dad, यानी हम dad को ही खा जाते, चलो हम पिताजी को ही खा जाते. दूसरे में क्या है, लेट्स ईट डैड, चलिए खाएं पिताजी, यानी पिताजी को वो बच्चा एड्रेस कर रहा है कि आइए चलिए हम लोग खाना खाते हैं, लेट अस एंजॉय द मील. और पहले वाले में क्या है, चलिए हम पिताजी को ही खा के एंजॉय करते हैं. So if the communication is not proper, it's not grammatically error free, it leaves entirely a different scenario, entirely a different communication, which is not good for an effective communication. Then Clarity. The idea should be very, very clear. Whatever we are trying to emphasize, it should be very, very clear. It implies, what does it imply? It implies emphasizing on a specific goal, the objective at the time. So whatever communication which I am trying to do, the idea should be clear that if I am saying A, the person who is listening to the communication or receiving at the receiver's end should be getting A and not B. So there should be a clarity in the idea. It helps to understand the message easily. Obviously, if the idea is clear, the message would be clearly delivered. नहीं नहीं तो फिर वही हो जाएगा, स्विंग स्टोरी वाली स्थिति हो जाएगी, बनाना था कुछ और बन जाएगा कुछ और. Clarity comes with the use of exact, appropriate, and concrete words. If we use concrete words, firm words, do it, this is. So this gives us an exactness. And if there is an exactness, the idea of proper communication is fulfilled. Consideration. It means taking audience into consideration by knowing their viewpoints, background, mindset, education level. So this can only be possible when we interact with the audience. If we interact with the audience, we will be understand what is their viewpoint regarding a particular communication. जैसे कि हमने किसी को कोई ऑर्डर दिया तो उधर से उसने रिस्पॉन्ड किया कि अच्छा ऐसे बनाना है, वैसे बनाना है, तो आप उसको बता सकते नहीं नहीं ऐसे नहीं बनाना, इसको इस तरह से बनाना. तो वहां पे क्या होगा कि जो कम्युनिकेशन होनी चाहिए वो हो पाएगी. It implies stepping into the shoes of others. So whenever a feedback is received, it exactly tells the picture whether the person is exactly understanding the idea or not understanding the idea. It ensures that the self-respect of the audience is maintained and their emotions are not harmed. So if we will take the viewpoints of the audience, we will go ahead and paraphrase. So the audience will also feel engaged and they will also feel that their emotions, their point of view is also being taken into consideration. Consider the needs and requirements of the audience. So whenever we are, let us suppose that showing a PowerPoint presentation, like as we did in the orientation program, so we must keep in mind that what is the need of the audience, what should be delivered to the audience, उसको चाहिए क्या, वो क्या जानने आया है, तभी हमारी communication जो है वो proper होगी, पूरी होगी. Conciseness, keep it short. It provides short and essential message in limited words. So whenever the very common example for conciseness is a team huddle. What is a team huddle? Before any football match or before any match, the players come together and they discuss a few points and then they disperse and go to the field. So there, that huddle, that conciseness, that short talk, the message should be short and clear. It is more appealing and comprehensive to the audience. If there is a meeting which is moving around the bush, the same idea is communicated again and again, what will happen? The audience will feel boring and the entire communication will fail its objective. The entire communication will not be delivered in the same manner as it should be delivered. They are not repetitive in nature. So if something is concise, it should not be repetitive in nature. It should be one liner. This should be done, that should be done. And that is what conciseness is. 4 S's of communication. What is 4 S's? Before that, we talk about 7 C's. Now we are talking about 4 S's of communication. Shortness, we need to keep it short, simple. Artistic language should not be used. The language should not be like this, that the person sitting in the audience is not able to understand what we are trying to say. Like there is a word paraphernalia. So paraphernalia is not a common word. So if we use it for a common audience, the person will not be able to understand what does it mean. So rather than paraphernalia, we can say the word that important items which are used by the students. So the paraphernalia for a student is notebook, pen, pencil, water bottle, etc. Strength. So the idea which is communicated should have some solid strength. And sincerity. The idea should be communicated in a very sincere and very, very grave manner. Now, how we can go ahead and overcome the barrier of the communication? If the communication is not happening proper, how can we make it sure that the communication is done properly? Connect with the audience, make the audience comfortable, talk to them, ask हालचाल पूछिए, क्या करके आए हैं आज, कैसा लग रहा है. Simple words, use simple words. Body language, smile, make eye contact, gestures, tone should be polite. Checking for understanding, उसमें क्या हम छोटे छोटे शॉर्ट क्वेश्चंस पूछ सकते हैं. जैसा समझ गया ना तो वो खुद ही बताएगा कि हाँ इसका मतलब ये है. Seeking participation, we should motivate them to participate in the event itself. आप क्या समझे, आपका कोई व्यू पॉइंट है, कोई और क्वेरी है, कुछ और पूछना चाहते हैं. Effective questions, we can ask the question. So all these things can also be used where? In our classes, in our day-to-day activities. So our audience, in 90% of the cases, our audience is none other than our students. So all these things can be implied in our classrooms as well, and that is the reason we are conducting this particular session. Tone of the voice, very, very important. It should be, my words came out fine. They were processed incorrectly by our brain. Okay, so this tends to be very funny, but it is very, very correct. मुंह से शब्द तो ठीक से निकले हैं, लेकिन दिमाग ने उसको गलत तरीके से भेजा है. लाइक बहुत अच्छे लग रहा है, बहुत अच्छे लग रहा है. So both the words mean the same, but if the tone is different, the message which is communicated is completely different. So we have to be very, very aware about the pitch. Pitch, what is pitch? Shrillness कितनी है, तीखा तो नहीं बोल रहा है. Volume, आवाज बहुत तेज तो नहीं है. स्माइल है कि नहीं फेस पे, किस तरीके से हम कम्युनिकेट कर रहे हैं, बहुत ज्यादा सीरियस तो नहीं है. तो जिस तरह की कम्युनिकेशन है, हमारा फेशियल एक्सप्रेशन भी कुछ उसी तरह होना चाहिए, हमारी टोन भी कुछ उसी तरह से होनी चाहिए, हमारी पिच भी कुछ उसी तरह से होनी चाहिए. वर्ड चॉइस, वेरी, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. कंफ्यूज्ड, लॉस्ट, अनश्योर, अनक्लियर, परप्लेक्स, डिसओरिएंटेड, bewildered, ये सारे कंफ्यूजन के ही वर्ड्स हैं. ऐसे वर्ड्स का यूज करने से हमें बचना चाहिए. अभी अभी हमने कहा कि कंसाइज्ड होने चाहिए, कॉन्क्रीट होने चाहिए. तो वर्ड चॉइस बहुत ही स्मार्टली करनी है हमें. ऑडियंस के अप्रोप्रिएटनेस के अकॉर्डिंग होनी चाहिए. कम पढ़ा लिखा ऑडियंस है, उसके सामने हम खूब इंग्लिश बोल रहे हैं, तो पर्सन इज नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड, राइट. हिंदी पढ़ा लिखा व्यक्ति है, उसके सामने हम संस्कृत में बात कर रहे हैं, नो, दैट्स अ बिग नो. ऑडियंस एक्सपेक्टेशन, ऑडियंस जो सोच के आया है, ओरिएंटेशन में आया है, तो ओरिएंटेशन की बात करें, स्कूल की बात करें, हम उससे कर, बाकी मूवीज की बात ना करने लगे. तो जो वो सोच के आया है बस उतनी ही बात करें. कंटेक्स्ट, वही कंटेक्स्ट की बात हो रही है कि अगर ओरिएंटेशन के लिए आया, सो वी नीड टू टॉक अबाउट ओरिएंटेशन इटसेल्फ. We not need to talk about the rules and regulations of this school. We need to talk about what are good things in the school, right? Then comes, what are the essentials? What are the things which needed to be done for effective communication? Always think ahead of what you are going to say. पहले से ही सोच के रखिए कि क्या कहने जा रहे हैं और इसका इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा और इसके रिपरकशंस क्या होंगे, आप कैसे इसको आंसर करेंगे. Use simple words and phrases that are understood very easily by everyone. सामान्य भाषा, साधारण भाषा रखिए जिसको सारे लोग समझ सकें. Increase your knowledge on subjects you require to speak on. Do your homework. Read at home. Google it. Read the books before you go ahead and communicate an idea. Speak clearly and be audible. धीरे धीरे बहुत नहीं बोलना है, बहुत ज्यादा फास्ट नहीं बोलना है, बहुत ज्यादा स्लो नहीं बोलना है. सो आइडिया एक क्लियर वे में और सबको सुनाई दे ऐसे वे में हमें कम्युनिकेट करना है. चेक ट्वाइस विद द लिसनर इफ यू हैव बीन अंडरस्टूड एक्यूरेटली. तो पैराफ्रेज करके, क्वेश्चनिंग करके आप लिसनर से ये जान सकते हैं कि वो आपको सही से समझा है कि नहीं समझा है। पे अनडिवाइड अटेंशन टू द स्पीकर। अगर हम लिसनर हैं तो स्पीकर पे फोकस करें, इधर उधर ना देखें, ना बातचीत करें, फोन के साथ ना खेलें। इससे दो नुकसान है, एक तो आप वो चीजें जो समझाने की कोशिश कर रहा है वो नहीं समझ पाएंगे, और दूसरा द स्पीकर हिमसेल्फ वुड बी डिस्ट्रैक्टेड। Ask for clarification if you fail to decode any information. अगर आप कुछ नहीं समझ पाए, feel free to ask to the speaker what is the exact communication he wants to do. If you get interrupted, recap and begin. So if I'm a speaker, if I get interrupted by a question, so I will say that, okay, we were discussing this particular point. Let us move ahead and let us discuss the next points. What are the don'ts? What we should not do while delivering a presentation, while we are speaking in a forum, while we are on the stage, while we are communicating an idea. Do not instantly react and mutter something in anger. किसी ने कोई क्वेश्चन पूछा, आपको बुरा लगा, आप तुरंत वही बुदबुदाना गुस्से में नहीं शुरू करना, क्या बकवास क्वेश्चन था, क्या पूछ लिया, what the heck it was. So we should not be doing that. Do not speak too fast or too slow. It should be a balanced rate of speech. Do not use jargons. Technical words should not be used. Avoid speaking in audible surroundings as you won't be heard. So we should not be in a place where there is a lot of noise because you wouldn't be able to be heard. Do not interrupt the speaker. Let's not interrupt the speaker. Let him finish his words, then only go ahead and paraphrase or ask the questions. Do not jump to conclusion that you have understood everything or everyone has understood you. We should not have a preconceived notion. Let us wait. Let the speaker paraphrase. Let the listener paraphrase. We should not be jumping to the conclusion and then we should try to extract the exact idea, whether we were able to understand the speaker or whether the listener is able to understand us. How we can go ahead and improve our communication, improve language. We can go ahead and
हम हो जाओ उठाओ जतनी 3:30 होता है।
Okay, so what we can do is that we can improve our language skills, and by improving our language skills, that would be a good communication. Is there? Okay, so improve pronunciation. If we can improve our pronunciation, our communication would be clear. Work on voice modulation. What is voice modulation? Change in tone. If we are happy, the idea should be communicated in a happy way. If the situation is grave, very tense, very relevant, the idea should be communicated in a grave voice. Take care of the body language. The body language should be according to the presentation, according to the idea which we want to communicate. अब ऐसा नहीं कि किसी के यहाँ दुख भरी खबर सुनाने गया जानते हैं उनका एक्सीडेंट हो गया, नो। अगर कोई खुशी भरी खबर तो मुंह लटका हुआ है, ऐसा भी नहीं होना चाहिए. बॉडी लैंग्वेज should be according to the communication which we are passing on. We should read more, listen more. Let's try to enhance our database. Let's try to enhance our knowledge. Avoid reading, watching, listening unwanted literature, gossip, media presentation. इन चीजों से हमें दूर रहना चाहिए अगर हमें exact knowledge चाहिए. Avoid reading irrelevant. It doesn't says that we should avoid reading each and everything. We should avoid reading and watching which is not required for us to read, which diverts us from our basic idea. So goal of effective communication is inform, persuade, and build relationship. This is very, very important. If the communication is effective, then the first we can go ahead and tell an information to somebody. We can persuade somebody to do something, or we can build relationship with various peoples. And this is what the goal of effective communication is. And last but not the least, one of the famous personalities, Mr. Dalai Lama, has said, when you talk, you are only repeating what you already know. Obviously, when we say something, we are saying whatever we already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new. So Dalai Lama wants to say that rather than being a good orator, a good speaker, we tend to be a very good listener, a patient listener, and then only the communication will be properly filled. So we have to be a very good listener, we have to be patient, and these are all the given points which were related to effective communication. If any colleague of mine wants to ask something or share their viewpoint, you are most welcome.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
The session was very effective. And today we know many things, many things we learned. It's all about sender and receiver that I learned from this session. And the way you have shown the slide of story of tree swing, it was mind blowing. And types of communication, 7 tips, how can we become a good listener? We should have patience, that I've learned today. And we all know that we should have patience for being a good listener. 5 ways to be an active and effective listener that you have said us. A teacher should be vocal. It was a remarkable thing that you have told us that teacher should be vocal. Yes, obviously, a teacher should be vocal. Importance of effective communication, common barriers to effective communication. And a new thing I have learned today, jargon. That means technical word. Na, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Very true.
Hmm. 7 C's of communication, 4 S's of communication, overcoming the barriers to effective communication, essentials of communication, do or don'ts. And at last, goal of effective communication. So, sir, it was awesome session. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm very happy to see that you are already implementing this idea of communication in your conversation, because what you just did is that you summarized whatever I said in the entire PowerPoint presentation. So this is the virtue of this.
So
is
it was so interesting, na? It was so effective.
This is the
That is why, sir.
Yes, ma'am. This is the quality of a good listener, that the listener went ahead and paraphrased, and not only you paraphrased it, but you summarized it very well. So I really appreciate you joining this session and sharing your viewpoint on this. Any other member would like
Thank
to
you, sir.
say something? Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so on this particular note, we will end the training session on effective communication skills. And this is the last training session of this year, 2021 and 22. I will be joining again next year's session in 2022 and 23. Have a nice day, and I hope that this effective communication is going to help each one of us in the coming session in our school. Thank you very much.
Thank you.